Hey everybody, this is Dave from FFDraftPrep.com. Wanted to quickly run through one of our new tools that is the Research Assistant. I'll take you through a real quick, maybe minute and a half version, and then for those of you that will be interested in using this tool, we'll run through a little bit more in depth. Real simple. It's basically a way to quickly toggle back and forth between a player's statistical output, looking at the last 5 years, and their fantasy points and season-ending fantasy rank within their position for the last 5 years. It's more or less just a database that allows you to quickly look back and forth between a player, compare what they have done. Obviously, past performance, no indicator of future performance, but you can use it to set your expectations for the coming year. I like to use it to develop my idea of a player's floor and ceiling in the upcoming season. So we have a lot of interactive charts here. You have the ability to toggle specific statistics, kind of make your own chart down here if you want to look at a player a certain way. All of this will update super quickly, so it's a little bit easier than doing a search on whatever site you like, as you can just really seamlessly go back and forth between different positions, different players, what have you, and look at these data points that you might be interested in, and have some nice charts. Like here shows you their season-ending rank. The bar graphs show you the points that they had at the end of the season and the games that they played, so you can do a real quick look at a player's trend and where they are in their career. So like Brandon Marshall, you pull that up, you can kind of see he's reached his peak coming down. Real simple analysis there, kind of making it not as complex as you really might do it, what have you, and then you can come over, you can look at a game log. I find these really interesting. My best example of that would be Mohamed Sanu from last year. If you remember, AJ Green kind of banged up a little bit, had a couple leg injuries in the beginning of the season that kind of slowed him down. Marvin Jones was out. Gio Bernard was injured in the beginning of the season, so Sanu played a larger part in the offense than he otherwise would have. As you can see, not only in his yards per game, but his fantasy output, which is represented by these little horizontal bars. So you can see this precipitous drop around week 10, which was when a lot of their other offensive weapons were back at full strength. So that's really more or less it. Just a real quick, nice, concise way to jump back and forth between different players and take a look at what they've done in the past, how they're trending. Okay, so hopefully we haven't spent too long on that and I didn't belabor anything too much. But let's take a look now at actually each piece in isolation for those of you that are going to want to use this, and I'm going to kind of just give you my thoughts on how I would go through this. So again, I'm really using this as a way to evaluate what a player has done over the last couple of seasons to determine where they are in their career. Think about their upcoming situation that they'll have in the 2015 season, and then consider what their best outcome might be and what their worst outcome might be, and develop a realistic set of expectations. A little caveat here is that for age, due to some rounding that I use to just simplify things, as it's kind of tough to know that every player's date of birth, I might be off 6 or months, either forward or backward. So it's conceivable Dez might actually be 28 when the season starts. I'm showing 27 here. I try to do the best that I could. Can't guarantee that age is correct in every case. But regardless of that, what we have over here in this section is a table that says for the 2012 through 14 season, in each of those particular instances, how many games did Dez Bryant record 10 plus fantasy points, 15 plus fantasy points, what have you. It averages up in this column. So if we look at a player that did not play every game, such as Calvin Johnson, you can see that he's averaged 14 games over the last 3 seasons. However, these numbers down here represent an adjusted average, so it's saying what percentage of the time and how many games would that have been if he did play a 16-game season. So it's kind of taking the percentages that he would have had in the seasons where he played under 16 games, normalizing them, and saying if Calvin did play 16 games in 2015, maybe this is what we could expect based purely upon his average. Let me put in a younger player here just to look at quickly. So let's do DeAndre Hopkins. So down here, I have a crude little analysis, which I did not do any complex modeling or anything like that in here, where it very quickly, just based upon statistical output, factoring in height and weight just a little bit, gives you similar averages over the last 3 seasons for other players, which I like to use this to maybe make me reassess a player's value, especially in the case of some of the older players who might have a little bit more name recognition. When you start seeing some of these younger players that have yet to have really good seasons, it makes you kind of just take a closer look at this older player. Or likewise, you may say, wow, this younger player has actually been giving their owners a similar value at a much lower draft pick. Off my head, don't know if I have a great example, but maybe I can show you what I mean. It's like Torrey Smith. And this has been kind of like Mike Wallace, Julio Jones, Sammy Watkins. So those are actually pretty good comps, but maybe it makes you say, wow, like Mike Wallace has been doing a little bit better than I realized. Maybe he represents more of a value than I was thinking in my head. Again, this is the chart that I like to use to get a very quick summation on a player. You can see that Smith has more or less been somewhere between a 20 to 30 player. Normally plays 16 games. And his points have been relatively consistent, and you can hover over these charts to see. So it was 204 and 13, for example. Down here, don't need to speak to this too much, as it's just purely that statistical output. You have fantasy points at season's end, position rank at season's end. Keep in mind that these are on a PPR basis. For those of you that choose to read the book, we cement and solidify the fact that if you're looking within a player's position, PPR does not change the rankings that much, only with players that their production in terms of fantasy value is highly based off of receptions. But so I think that it's fine to look at these numbers regardless of if you're playing a PPR format or a standard league. Graphs down here basically just map out in kind of a visual format those 3-year averages that we just talked about and the games with the X amount of points that we talked about above. Down here, this is one of the things that I really like. You can select different stats, and it's inclusive of more than those quick tables up above. You can toggle those and make your own little charts that you might like to look at. So let's say we're looking at a running back. Good example might be Drake Bell. And I will map in some rushing stats, leave games in. I like to look at that normally. So look, rush yards, yards per carry, maybe leaving receptions because it's interesting with a player like him to see how he's been involved in the passing game. And maybe rushing touchdowns. And what would be another good rushing metric to look at here? So we did yards per carry, receiving yards, rush attempts. And Excel's being a little bit slow, but this will update down here. Only being slow, by the way, not because of the way the file is constructed, but just because I'm using the software to record this. And down here you get a little nice visual of whatever you have in this column. The game log will be updated based upon whatever player you're looking at, and I'm pretty sure that you should be able to look through this yourself. It's basically just pure stats, and it has this fantasy points for each of these games over here, and we're looking at the 2012, 2013, 2014 seasons. You have any questions on it, just shoot me an email. We'll get back to you. Trying to answer any questions that you might have. If you see any bugs or anything like that, definitely let me know, and I will make the updates, send out an updated version. And as we move our way through the summer, if there's some movements on what teams players are on and whatnot, might send out an update. Just because want to keep it as relevant as possible. But so again, real quick, easy way to toggle between players, work on developing expectations for the upcoming season. In a pretty easy, nice, digestible way where you don't have to do a lot of searching back and forth between different sites. So again, you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching, and hope that you decide to use it.